Beneath the hush of the ocean, where light forgets to shine and the waves slow to a murmur, there lives a creature born from liquid stories. It has no bones, no edges, no single shape. The octopus, soft and thinking, drifts like a question through coral corridors and sea caves. It moves not with muscle or bone, but with a choreography of arms that dream as they glide. Its skin is a living canvas, painting itself with colors it does not see, reacting to the world like a mood wrapped in flesh. Scientists once believed intelligence needed structure, skulls, brains, boundaries, but the octopus taught them otherwise. Its mind is not held in a single place. Two-thirds of its neurons live not in its head but in its arms. Each arm feels, decides, and remembers. If an arm is touched by a passing crab, it reacts before the central brain even knows. Imagine a body where every limb is a thinker, a dreamer, a quiet responder to the sea. The octopus sees without sound, hears without ears, and escapes without noise. When threatened, it does not fight, it vanishes. Its skin ripples with camouflage so precise, it mimics the ocean floor, the curling algae, the shimmer of distant sand. Some octopuses can change their skin's texture as well, becoming rough like coral or smooth like silk. One moment they are a rock, the next, a ghost slipping away. But perhaps the most curious thing is what happens when they sleep. Yes, octopuses sleep, and sometimes they dream. Researchers watching an octopus in rest have seen it pulse with color. While its body lies still, its skin flickers from pale white to sudden stripes, then spots, then rich, deep reds, all while it slumbers. What does an octopus dream of? A swim through kelp, a chase with a crab, a memory of hiding in a bottle on the ocean floor. Inside this flickering dream state, some scientists believe the octopus is rehearsing life. As mammals do, as we do. Like a child twitching in sleep, recalling the day's stories, the octopus may be rewriting the sea inside its skin. Its dreams may be soft echoes of the deep, silent, and strange, lit by memories instead of sun. Let's float now into its skin. The octopus wears millions of chromatophores, cells that burst with color. Tiny muscles stretch and squeeze these cells, revealing yellows, browns, reds. Underneath, reflective layers catch light and throw it back like oil on water. It's not just camouflage, it's expression. Scientists think octopuses may use their skin to communicate, perhaps to flirt, to warn, to tell. But we don't yet know their language. We only see the shimmer and guess the sentence. Their bodies are puzzles with no center, no skeleton, no spine. A beak, yes, hard and sharp, hidden where the arms meet, but otherwise all softness. This makes them escape artists of the highest order. Some have slipped through coin-sized holes. Others have crept out of tanks at night, crossed labs, and helped themselves to snacks before returning unseen. Their minds are curious, mischievous. They solve mazes, unscrew jars, play with objects for the sheer joy of it. Captive octopuses have been known to squirt water at lights they dislike, rearrange their tanks, even recognize individual humans. They are not machines of instinct. They are painters, tricksters, thinkers made of muscle and mystery. Their life, however, is brief. Most octopuses live only a year or two. After mating, they begin a quiet fade. The female guards her eggs with relentless care, refusing food, watching over them until she withers. The male, after mating, begins to drift. A brilliant mind extinguished softly. It seems unfair, almost cruel, that such intelligence should burn so briefly. And yet, perhaps this is what makes them more poetic than tragic. A creature that lives fast, loves once, and leaves behind hundreds of new lives before sinking into the blue. Some say they are aliens not just in appearance but in code. Their RNA editing system is strange, almost rebellious. Unlike humans, who mostly stick to the instructions written in their DNA, octopuses rewrite their molecular sentences as they go. They adjust on the fly, tuning their proteins for the moment. Scientists marvel at this, wondering if it's part of what makes them so adaptive, so unpredictable. But it also comes with a cost. They rewrite, yes, but they evolve slowly. In a way, they trade long-term change for short-term brilliance. They are improvisers, not planners. Dancers, not architects. Now imagine yourself drifting near one, somewhere quiet and low in the ocean. You see a rock, then a shimmer, then nothing. But for a moment you feel watched, not threatened, just observed. Then a bubble, a ripple, and the faintest flick of 8 limbs disappearing into the seaweed. Was it curious? Was it playing? Was it dreaming of you? We call them monsters in old tales, kraken and sea beasts. But in truth, they are quieter than the waves, more curious than cruel, more art than animal. The octopus does not roar or sting or chase. It simply exists, a flicker of thought, wrapped in silk and water. And in the night, as it curls in its den, skin poolsing with dreams, we are left to wonder what kind of world exists behind those thoughtful eyes. A world we may never fully enter, but one we're lucky to glimpse. Let's drift deeper now into the folds of its strange intelligence. Not long ago, many believed that cleverness belonged only to animals with backbones, with tools, with family groups and social needs. But the octopus lives alone. It makes no community, builds no cities. Its life is quiet, solitary, and yet so full of mind. This creature, shaped like spilled ink and moving like breath, solves puzzles not to survive but perhaps to feel. It investigates, it experiments, it plays. What does play mean in a world of currents and coral? In the still tanks where researchers peer in, octopuses have been seen grabbing objects and letting them drift away, then fetching them again, like a child with a balloon in the breeze. They toss shells, chase bottle caps, and nudge toys with a kind of intention. There's no reward, no food, no training, just curiosity dancing in water. Some octopuses seem to have preferences, choosing one item over another, returning again and again to the same toy. It's a gentle, flickering glimpse into a life that might feel something like joy. There is something poetic in a mind that stretches across arms. Each limb is an explorer, able to taste, feel, even make decisions. Scientists tested this by separating an arm from the body, not in cruelty but in study, and found it still responded, curling around objects, reaching with intent. It is as if the octopus does not think from one center but from everywhere at once, like a field of minds stitched together by muscle. It has no rigid plan, but instead, an orchestra of sensing limbs, all playing softly toward the same idea. In the wild, its world is full of shapes, caves, coral mazes, drifting prey. To navigate this, the octopus must do more than react. It must imagine. It learns quickly, sometimes in one try. And unlike many animals, it can generalize, solving a new version of an old puzzle with graceful ease. When kept in captivity, it adapts to confinement faster than most sea creatures. But this brilliance has a cost. Confinement can wear on its mind. Some octopuses become restless, even self-destructive, as though their thoughts turn inward and begin to undo them. Intelligence in this soft being is not just a gift, it's also a weight. Now consider its colors again. The shifting language of the skin. When we blush, it is an accident of blood. When the octopus blushes, it is intention, a signal, a shape it chooses to become. Its chromatophores are tiny muscles pulling open sacs of pigment, yellows, browns, reds, each movement a sentence, perhaps even a whisper. Beneath that layer are iridophores, reflecting light in blues and greens, and deeper still, leucophores, scattering light to help it match the sea. It is a multi-layered miracle of optical illusion, a living painting that rewrites itself in an instant. Some researchers believe this visual magic may be tied to emotion. A relaxed octopus shows pale tones, a startled one darkens, an angry one flashes. In this sense, its entire body becomes a mood, not just camouflage but conversation, though one we do not yet understand. Others wonder if the skin is more than a display if it sees. That is, if the skin itself can detect light change, perhaps even movement. This would mean the octopus does not only see with its eyes, but with its entire body, a creature of vision and sensation, wrapped in silk. The eyes themselves are jewels of design. Horizontal pupils, almost alien, give it a wide and clear view of the ocean. Its vision is sharp, despite lacking the cones we use for color. Some believe the octopus sees through polarization, reading the orientation of light waves, not just their shade. This would grant it a view unlike ours, rich in contrasts and hidden patterns. In a world of blue and blur, the octopus may see structure we cannot even imagine. Perhaps this is why it moves with such purpose, such grace, not because it knows where to go, but because it reads the sea like a poem. Its arms are more than tools. Lined with rows of suction cups, they taste and touch together. Each sucker can move independently, grip tightly, or gently explore. A giant Pacific octopus may have more than 2,000 of them. When it embraces the world, it does so with full sensitivity. It can distinguish textures, weights, even chemical signals. Some scientists say it smells by touch. When an arm curls around a shell or stone, it is not just feeling shape, it's tasting history. Reading the language of the oceans, past written in salt and silt. And what of their homes? Though nomadic, many octopuses build dens, quiet little caves of stone carefully arranged. Some collect shells and coconut halves, using them for cover. One was filmed dragging 2 coconut shells across the ocean floor, then assembling them around itself like armor. Not instinct, planning, foresight. Another, observed in a lab, would barricade its den entrance with rocks each night, then remove them in the morning. Not because it had to, but because it seemed to want to. There are even signs of personality. Some individuals are shy, others bold. Some greet divers, extending an arm in soft curiosity. Others hide and watch. Over time, researchers have come to recognize their behaviors not just as reflexes, but as traits, patterns, perhaps even a sense of self. It is tempting to imagine that inside that gelatinous head, something like thought pulses, a presence aware of its world, not just reacting to it. And still, the greatest mystery may be how such intelligence evolved in solitude. Most animals with complex minds live in groups: dolphins, elephants, humans, where social living drives communication and learning. But the octopus lives alone. Its world is not shaped by others, but by environment. Puzzles of coral, chases with prey, hiding from predators. It is as if the sea itself became its teacher. And in that lonely school, the octopus became clever, not for others, but for itself. We do not know what an octopus feels. If it dreams of more than motion, if it remembers moments, if it holds memories with emotion or simply pattern. But when you watch one hover in a tide pool, shifting from color to color, reaching toward the glass with careful grace, something deep inside you feels seen. As if this creature, so different, so old, so soft, knows something quiet about the world and is choosing not to tell. Perhaps that's the final wonder, that in all our science, we still cannot truly name the mind of the octopus. We can observe, test, describe. But the experience of being one, of thinking with arms, of seeing with skin, of vanishing in a dream, remains theirs alone. And so we float here with them at the edge of knowing, lulled by arms that reach and retract, by colors that rise and vanish, by thoughts that do not follow lines but circles, swirls, and spirals. We can only watch and wonder and be grateful for the brief, strange beauty of their company. And now, as the tides slow and the ocean darkens, we follow the octopus toward the final act of its short, shimmering life. It has danced through currents and questions, solved the puzzles of reef and shell, camouflaged its feelings in color. But time moves in one direction, even for creatures made of mystery. For the octopus, life begins with separation and ends with silence. There is no long lineage or family bond. The young hatch alone, drifting into the sea as plankton, barely larger than a grain of rice, guided by instinct and the rhythms of the ocean. The mother, after laying tens of thousands of eggs, becomes still. She guards them with a devotion so complete it erases her hunger. For weeks, sometimes months, she stays without food, gently wafting water over the eggs, cleaning them with her careful arms, watching them change. She uses the last of her energy not for herself, but for her unborn children. And when at last they leave their protective shells and float free into the world, she has already begun to fade. Her body softens. Her arms grow clumsy, she lets go. This final surrender is not violent. It is quiet, almost poetic, a creature of brilliance and touch, ending in stillness. The male, too, after mating, begins to unravel, not physically at first, but mentally. His body may remain intact, but something in the mind falters. He becomes less aware, less responsive, as if his thoughts, so full and curious, are sinking into the sea before the body follows. The octopus does not grow old. It disappears into its last days with the same softness that defined its living. And yet what it leaves behind is vast. Each baby octopus carries the memory of millions of years. Not a memory of moments, but of design, the gift of arms that feel and taste, of skin that sings in color, of a mind that stretches and curls like the ocean itself. Most of them will not survive. They will be eaten, scattered, forgotten. But a few will reach the reef, find a crevice, grow into their own odd minds, and the pattern will begin again. We have looked into space for alien minds, sent golden records across the stars, but perhaps the closest thing to alien life lives right here, just below the tide, wrapped in softness, blinking with chromatophores. Its intelligence is not ours. Its world is not shaped by fire or cities or speech. And yet it knows things. It has solved its own problems, shaped its own tools, survived in places we cannot reach. And it has done so without noise, without cruelty, without conquest. There is something humbling about this. The octopus does not build monuments, but it remembers where it hid its prey. It does not write poems, but it paints them in ripples of skin. It does not tell stories, but it is one from beginning to end, a tale of strangeness, solitude, and sudden beauty. And we, land-bound and full of clocks, can only look through the water and try to understand. In recent years, scientists have begun to ask deeper questions. Should octopuses have rights? Can a creature so clearly capable of learning, feeling, perhaps even suffering be treated like a thing? Some countries now recognize them as sentient, not just alive, but aware. In some laboratories, octopus experiments are being replaced with observation. In some minds, curiosity is turning to compassion. Because to see an octopus respond to your presence, to reach toward you with a deliberate, tasting arm, to change color as if blushing beneath your gaze, it stirs something. Not fear, not awe, something gentler, a whisper of recognition, a feeling that even here, beneath the surface, thought exists in forms we had not imagined. And in that recognition, a kind of peace. For the octopus teaches us that intelligence does not need bones, that emotion may move through arms instead of eyes, that awareness might flicker through colors instead of words. It invites us to let go of what we think a mind must look like, and instead drift into new shapes of knowing. Perhaps that is its final lesson, not in science, but in softness, that you can be powerful without violence, that you can be clever without conquest, that a life lived in caves and colors can be just as full as one lived in cities and noise. That mystery, not mastery, is what makes the world rich. Now imagine the octopus one last time, in its den nestled among stones, its arms tucked gently beneath its mantle, its skin slow fatting, not hiding now, not fleeing, just being. The sea moves outside like a lullaby, soft and endless, and inside there is no fear, no panic, only quiet. It does not fight the end, it becomes part of it, the same way it once became part of a rock or a shell or the ocean floor. Its body, always fluid, now returns to the sea that shaped it. The currents carry its memory, the reefs hold its story, and somewhere far away, a tiny octopus drifts toward its own beginning. So we leave it there in the hush of the deep, where color is a language and thought lives in silk. Not as a monster, not as a riddle, but as a moment, strange, beautiful, and real. A creature that disappears not because it is lost, but because it was never fully ours to hold. In the stillness of northern forests, where winter comes not as a whisper but as a weight, there lives a small creature who does something remarkable. While most hearts would stop, while most bodies would crack under the cold, this creature quietly surrenders and survives. The wood frog, a creature scarcely larger than a thumb, endures what should be fatal. It allows itself to freeze, not hide from the cold, not burrow deep and stay warm, but to become ice, eyes clouded, skin stiff, breath vanished, and then somehow to return. The snow begins to fall and the leaves curl into sleep. The ponds grow glassy and silent, and the wood frog, nestled under a log or a thin layer of leaf litter, does not flee, it waits. The temperature drops below zero. Ice crystals form inside its body. Its heart slows, then stops. There is no pulse, no breath, no movement. It is frozen solid, and yet it is not dead. This is no trick of illusion, no shallow sleep. Inside its tiny body, the very water between and within its cells is turning to ice. For most creatures, this would mean rupture and ruin. Ice expands. It breaks membranes. It shatters the delicate structure of life, but not in this frog. Before freezing, it floods its blood with sugar glucose drawn from the liver in a massive surge. This sugar acts like antifreeze, protecting the cells, keeping just enough water inside, holding the edges of life in place. It is a gentle, biochemical hug around the soul. The science is startling. As the frog's body temperature drops, it enters a deep metabolic pause. Enzymes slow, reactions stall, and time itself feels as though it stops. The frog's organs dehydrate slightly, water drawn away from delicate spaces where ice might cause damage. Its blood stops flowing. Yet the cells are preserved. The structures of the body remain intact, like a book placed carefully on a frozen shelf, waiting for the thaw. Days pass, then weeks. The forest sleeps under snow. The wind rasps through bare trees, and the frog waits, its life suspended. No heartbeat, no breath, just the slow stillness of survival. Scientists who have studied these frogs have found them solid, cold to the touch, lifeless in every visible way. And then in spring, the miracle begins. As the air warms, sunlight softens the snow. The ground becomes damp again, fragrant with thaw. The frog begins to wake, slowly, so slowly. The heart twitches. The cells absorb water, the glucose recedes, the limbs flex, the eyes clear. And within hours, what was frozen becomes alive again. The frog hops forward, blinking at a world it left behind in silence. To see it happen is to witness a gentle defiance of death. It is not resurrection, not magic, but biology pushed to the edge of poetry. The frog has learned to live between two worlds. It dances on the border between being and ceasing, trusting its body to fold into winter and rise with spring. In this small, unassuming animal lies a secret that scientists marvel at: a living map of how nature navigates the impossible. Other animals avoid the freeze. Birds migrate, bears burrow. Even insects, when they freeze, often die. But the wood frog steps into it unafraid. It lets winter enter its blood and survives by embracing it. This adaptation is not just a survival tactic. It is an invitation to rethink the boundaries of life itself. What does it mean to be alive if the heart can stop and still start again? If breath can vanish and return? The frog offers no answers, only silence. It does not boast. It does not know the wonder it inspires. It only climbs from its thawing bed, shakes the dew from its skin, and begins again. Its habitat is modest, damp forests, shaded creeks, puddled glens. It breeds in temporary pools, the kind made by spring rains that vanish before summer. These ephemeral waters are safe from fish, warm in the shallow sun, perfect for quick growth. The frog lays eggs here, a soft cluster of jelly that hatches into tadpoles, eager for transformation. The tadpole, like the adult, is a shapeshifter. From gills to lungs, from tail to leg, it rewrites its own body in weeks. All around them the forest hums with awakening. Insects buzz, buds unfurl, and the froglets, having skipped death by ice, leap into a world full of songs and light. To live this way, to freeze and return, is not just a biological wonder. It is a lesson in stillness, in surrender. The frog does not fight winter. It does not resist. It lets go, trusting its body to carry it through. There is something deeply human in that, though we cannot do the same. It reminds us that sometimes survival is not strength but softness. In recent studies, scientists have begun to examine the proteins and pathways that allow the frog's tissues to endure freezing. These molecules may one day help us preserve human organs longer for transplant, perhaps even help astronauts endure deep space travel, or reveal how cells resist damage under extreme stress. In the frog's blood may live the secrets to slowing time, to stepping out of the present and returning again, intact. But beyond the science, there is something more poetic: to be frozen and yet unbroken, to sleep beneath the snow, trusting the sun will return, to build a life not by avoiding hardship but by moving through it with grace. The frog does not escape winter. It becomes part of it and then wakes when the world is ready again. And so each year in forests not far from where we walk, these quiet miracles unfold. Beneath leaves and logs, a stillness deeper than sleep. Hearts waiting to beat again. Lives paused, not ended. A reminder, tucked inside a frog no bigger than your palm, that the line between death and life is thinner than we know and sometimes reversible. Let us follow the frog now beyond the frost, into the thawed world where waking becomes instinct once more. The forest is dripping, its silence broken by melting snow. Buds swell on branches. A golden haze returns to the air, and from under a crust of fatting winter the wood frog blinks. Its heart, long silent, resumes its quiet rhythm. Its limbs stretch as if remembering what it means to move. There is no ceremony to this rebirth, only motion, simple, undeniable, ancient. For scientists, this transformation is a marvel. To freeze is not unusual in nature. Insects do it, plants endure it. But vertebrates, creatures with blood and bones, do not typically return. The cold kills by many paths, ice slicing cells, fluids rushing out, tissues swelling and breaking. Yet this small frog has rewritten the rules. Its survival is not a trick, but a strategy, one written into its genes and blood. When fall arrives, a signal stirs within the frog's body. Its liver begins to prepare, storing glycogen, long chains of sugar. As freezing approaches, this sugar is broken down and released into the blood in enormous quantities. Blood sugar levels in these frogs can rise to nearly 100 times normal. This flood of glucose doesn't nourish. It protects. Sugar molecules nestle beside proteins and membranes, stabilizing them like scaffolding. They prevent ice from forming inside cells, leaving the lethal crystals to form only in the spaces between. And so the frog becomes a kind of puzzle, frozen but unbroken, still but not ruined. The lines of life remain in place as if drawn in chalk just before the snow. When warmth returns, the glucose is drawn back into the liver. Water seeps back into tissues. Breathing resumes. But there is no damage, no scar. It is not just survival, it is restoration. A full return to function, as though winter were nothing more than a skipped page. Other frogs survive winter in different ways. Some burrow deep below the frost line. Others seek out rotting logs warm with microbial heat. But the wood frog stays near the surface. It risks the full force of the freeze, resting beneath leaves and needles, trusting the cold not to destroy it. This gamble is a kind of faith, not blind but biological, a belief, written in its chemistry, that it will endure. This adaptation has limits. The frog can survive several freeze-thaw cycles, but not endlessly. If the freeze is too deep or lasts too long, even the wood frog cannot return. Yet within its narrow window it achieves something extraordinary. It halts time, not just in story but in truth. The enzymes that speed life slow to near stillness. Mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cell, become quiet. The frog holds itself on the edge of nothing, waiting. It is not alone in this power. Other animals, too, have learned to pause. Some turtles slow their hearts to a single beat every 10 minutes. Certain fish can survive in frozen lakes by creating antifreeze proteins. But the wood frog does something more dramatic. It embraces the cold as deeply as any leaf or twig. It gives itself over fully to a season that does not forgive. And then it rises again, intact. In the forest, spring is a symphony of awakenings. The wood frog is one of the first voices to return. Before even the ice is gone, its croak sounds like laughter in the woods, short, sharp, urgent. Males gather in shallow pools, their songs overlapping in rhythmic pulses. These breeding choruses are fast and fierce. The frog has little time. Its watery world will vanish within weeks. So it calls, it mates, it moves with purpose. The eggs are small globes of possibility, clustered together in gelatinous mass. Within each, a tadpole begins to spin itself into being, cells dividing, organs forming, tails stretching. The warmth of sunlight speeds their growth, and soon the water is alive with wriggles as the next generation prepares for change. From fin to foot, from gill to lung, the metamorphosis is swift. Each tadpole, born in a world made of melting snow, is built for transformation. And all around them life unfolds. Salamanders slip from under logs. Insects rise from wet leaves. The forest breathes again, awakened by creatures who slept in silence. But none have slept as deeply, as completely as the frog. None have come closer to the end and stepped back again. Its presence is a quiet marvel, not flashy, not large, but profound. The frog does not boast of its journey. It simply leaps, clambers, croaks. It eats insects, avoids predators, and lives a life that appears ordinary. But in its cells it carries the blueprint of something vast, a key to stasis, to suspended time, to molecular endurance. In labs around the world, researchers study this blueprint. They look to the frog for answers: how to freeze and store human organs for transplant, how to preserve endangered species, how to travel far, where sleep must stretch into years. Some have even wondered, could we too one day learn to pause our lives? Could we mimic this soft miracle, not in storybooks or dreams, but in space travel, in medicine, in time itself? The frog does not answer. It offers no explanations, only evidence. A heart that once stopped, beating again. A body once rigid, moving with grace. There is something comforting in this, that life can pause without ending, that silence does not always mean absence, that beneath the snow something waits, not impatiently but faithfully. The frog reminds us that the seasons do not ask permission. They come, they pass, and if we are lucky, we move with them. We rest when it is time to rest. We return when the warmth is ready. So let us linger here a little longer, in this place between winter and spring. Let us watch the frog as it slips through thawed water, unaware of its own wonder. Let us remember that sometimes life bends instead of breaks, and in that gentle bend, in that trustful stillness, something beautiful survives. As the days lengthen and the chill slips into memory, the wood frog carries on, quiet and unnoticed. Its miracle is complete, but it does not linger in glory. It returns to the rhythm of forest life, catching insects, hiding under damp leaves, moving silently through the undergrowth. Around it the forest swells with noise, the calls of birds, the rustle of small mammals, the trickle of thawed streams. Yet the frog remains modest, its voice brief, its needs simple. It does not know it has brushed the edge of death and returned. It only knows it is alive. The cycle continues. Eggs hatch, tadpoles grow, and soon new frogs take their place in the leaf litter. Each one carries the ancient instructions within: the glucose surge, the cellular resistance, the ability to wait through the ice. They do not need to learn it. It lives in them already, a legacy of survival written in their blood. And so the knowledge passes forward, not as memory but as biology, a story told without words. Still, the deeper story of the wood frog is not only one of adaptation. It is a question whispered beneath its stillness. How much of life is about movement and how much is about waiting? In a world that rushes, the frog teaches the value of pausing. When the cold becomes too deep, it does not fight. It simply stops. It places its trust in what it is made of and lets the season pass through it. There is wisdom in that stillness, not a giving up, but a giving in. Not weakness, but a gentler kind of strength. Some frogs will live only a few short years, and most will never be seen by human eyes. They'll sing at dusk, then vanish by dawn. They'll freeze again next winter, hidden under bark or moss, hearts stilled by snow. And still they will wake, again and again, like clockwork powered by silence. Their lives are small in our eyes, yet immense in their own rhythm, marked not by noise or size, but by resilience. In northern places where the ground locks tight each winter, where temperatures fall lower than breath and stay for weeks, the frog rests. Nearby, bears may dream in dens, but they stay warm. Mice may tunnel through snow, but they stay moving. The frog, in contrast, becomes stillness itself, a body sculpted by winter, encased in nature's breath. It is not just surviving, it is becoming a part of the season, a frozen note in the long song of the forest. And when the forest sings again in spring, it rejoins the chorus as if no pause had passed. Scientists marvel at this process, and still, parts of it remain unclear. How do its organs coordinate the return? How does it avoid clotting, cellular rupture chaos? We understand the mechanisms, but not the symphony. The frog is both simple and unsolved, a riddle hidden in plain sight. Its cousins elsewhere do not share this gift. In warmer forests, frogs leap year-round. In tropical rains, they call all night. But the wood frog has traded longevity for a kind of time travel, skipping weeks of hunger, hardship, and cold by entering a biological pause. Its life is not longer than others, but perhaps deeper, lived in pulses, in awakenings. It is as though it has found a way to hold hands with time and say, "Wait with me." And still there is beauty in its ordinary moments. The way it sits, motionless, watching a beetle. The way it blends into the leaf mold, invisible to all but the sharpest eye. The way it sings, not to impress, not to declare territory, but to find another frog to make more life. Its voice is raspy, almost like laughter. It does not echo like a bullfrog or trill like a tree frog. It chirps in short bursts, full of urgency, full of hope. In these brief calls, a forest wakes, salamanders stir, birds take notice, and the forest's great wheel turns once more. But behind it all, beneath the fallen leaves and shallow pools, the frog's quiet triumph persists. It does not shout its story. It does not need to. The mere fact that it is here, breathing, leaping, calling, is enough. People who walk the forest trails may never see one. Or if they do, they may mistake it for a piece of the forest floor, a twitching leaf, a shadow in motion. But to those who pause, who look closely, the frog reveals itself. And in that moment, something inside us responds not to the frog's shape or sound, but to what it represents. A truth soft and strong, that life can pause and continue. That stillness is not the absence of living, but sometimes its most powerful form. And what if we could do the same? Not freeze like the frog, but slow down, endure winter with grace, hold our breath through the storms of life and return whole. What if we trusted our inner rhythms, our body's quiet wisdom, the way the frog trusts the ice, not to take it, but to hold it gently? The frog does not teach through words, but through being. And in its being, there is a lesson for us, not loud, but lasting. So we leave it there in the wet spring woods, blending into mud and moss. Its eyes half-lidded, its skin warming in the dappled sun. It has frozen, it has thawed, and it will do so again. Not with fanfare, not with drama, but with quiet certainty. The kind of certainty that comes only from deep harmony with the world. And if you listen closely, if you sit on a mossy rock and wait, you might hear it, a single note among many, a reminder in the form of a raspy croak, that life continues even in stillness, that hearts can stop and still restart, that the world holds space for small miracles, and that somewhere under the leaves something is always waiting for spring. In the slow-moving rivers of the Amazon, where the water turns the color of dusk and tree roots braid beneath the surface, there lives a creature that speaks in pulses. It does not chirp or sing or growl. Its voice is electric, rippling silently through the current like a code. This is the electric eel, not truly an eel, but a fish shaped by power and silence. It does not flash or roar. It hums. And in its hum there is communication, hunting, navigation, a soft whisper made of electricity. The electric eel, Electrophorus electricus, belongs to a family of knifefish, long-bodied and finned like ribbons. It glides through muddy water with grace, curling its body like a snake swimming in thought. Hidden in its length are organs made not for movement or digestion, but for generating voltage. Along its sides, three distinct electric organs work in concert: the mane, the sacs, and the hunter's organ. Together, they can create bursts of electricity strong enough to stun prey, ward off predators, or send signals into the unknown. The eel's power does not come from muscles or teeth. It comes from cells, thousands of electrocytes stacked like living batteries. When the eel decides, these cells discharge simultaneously, releasing a jolt into the water. A small one may be gentle, like static. A strong one can reach up to 600 volts, enough to knock a fish unconscious or make a predator retreat. And yet the eel is not violent. Its strikes are measured, brief, a language of sparks, not fury. In darkness, where eyes fail and sound travels slowly, electricity becomes a sense. The eel emits low-voltage pulses as it swims, creating a field around itself. Anything that enters this field disturbs it. A rock, a tree root, a fish. The eel reads these changes not with sight but with perception. It maps its world in waves, sculpting the invisible in its mind. This electric field is its lantern, its compass, its map. And more than that, it is its voice. Electric eels use these pulses to communicate. A flicker to signal presence. A pattern to express readiness. Some researchers believe each eel has a unique electric signature, like a fingerprint made of lightless current. They may recognize one another by it, interpreting tone and rhythm the way we read body language or tone of voice. In this way, the eel becomes not a solitary spark, but part of a quiet, glowing dialogue under the water. Its hunting is equally elegant. It begins with a soft scan, pulses probing the water for the shape of life. When it senses movement, the pulses increase. The eel approaches, and then, suddenly, it strikes, a high-voltage burst, just enough to jolt the prey into stillness. If needed, the eel may follow with a series of shocks like a drumbeat. Some scientists call this the stun and track method. The eel temporarily paralyzes its prey, then uses its electric sense to follow the twitch, like a heat-seeking whisper. And then comes the most curious behavior, the curl. The eel will often wrap its body around the stunned fish, pressing its head and tail close to the prey. This creates a closed loop, focusing the electrical current directly through the fish's body. It's not cruelty. It's efficiency, a way to amplify its natural power. Within moments, the fish stops moving, and the eel, calm again, swallows it whole. But even when not hunting, the electric eel lives in a field of its own making. Every breath, for yes, it breathes air, is timed between pulses. Every movement is guided by silent flashes. Even its rest is accompanied by faint electrical songs. It lives inside its own language, speaking always, even in sleep. And yes, it must breathe. Though it swims in water, the electric eel is an obligate air breather. Every 10 minutes or so, it rises to the surface, gulps air, and descends. Its blood extracts oxygen not just from water, but from the air above. In the murky Amazon, where oxygen is low and the water's warm, this adaptation means life. Without it, the eel would suffocate. But with it, it thrives in places few others can. There is mystery in its movements, slow, deliberate, as if considering its next thought. Unlike many fish, it does not flick or dart. It glides. Its long anal fin ripples like silk in slow wind, propelling it forward with grace. It does not splash. It flows. And in that flow it listens, mapping the world in invisible shapes, hearing without ears, seeing without eyes. Its body is long, sometimes over 6 feet, but its power is quiet. There is no glow, no visible sign of the current it carries. But the moment of the strike can be felt in the water, like a pause, a tension, and then release. The eel does not need armor or fangs. Its defense is built into its being. A soft body with sharp power, wrapped in water. To live like this, in currents and codes, is to occupy a space between senses. The eel does not rely on touch or sight or sound. It moves through the unseen, interpreting ripples in the electric ether. In a way, it lives in a dimension we cannot sense. And yet, it is as real as any wolf or hawk. It reminds us that perception is not a fixed thing, that the world may be full of signals we do not yet hear. So it swims, quiet and lit from within, beneath the roots of rainforest trees. Its life is not flashy. It is patient, focused, a creature of silence and shock, mystery and measurement. We call it the electric eel, but to the river it is a pulse, a rhythm, a flicker of thought moving through water. Let us now drift further into the hidden world of this charged swimmer, where language pulses in waves and power hums in silence. The electric eel does not simply produce electricity. It controls it, modulates it, plays it like an instrument. High-voltage bursts are only part of the story. For most of its time, the eel emits tiny signals, small enough to be undetectable to humans, but rich with meaning to the eel. These constant pulses form a kind of electric conversation, steady and soft, used not just for navigation, but to sense the texture of life around it. Imagine walking through a pitch-black forest, blindfolded, unable to smell or hear. Now imagine that with every step you take, you send out a ripple of energy that returns with a shape, the edge of a tree, the curve of a leaf, the shift of something moving. This is the eel's daily reality. It does not see the world. It senses it through space, decoding the tiniest shifts in its self-generated field. The precision of this perception is astonishing. It can detect the heartbeat of a fish buried under mud. It can follow a moving object through turbid water. Its world is sculpted in current. But this electric field is more than a tool. It is a veil of protection. In muddy rivers where vision is useless and predators may lurk behind every plant, the eel's pulses create a safe bubble of awareness. Within this bubble, nothing goes unseen. Everything leaves a trace. Even a human hand, if placed in the water nearby, would distort the field. The eel would feel it, understand it, decide its meaning. Friend, prey, threat. It lives inside its own map, one that redraws itself in real time with every twitch, every breath, every shift in the water's pressure. Researchers have tried to measure these pulses in the lab, recording their frequencies, comparing their rhythms. Some eels pulse at a near constant rate, others adapt moment by moment. And just like a voice, each eel's electric output carries its identity. Some scientists have even suggested that eels recognize each other not by sight or smell, but by signature pulse, an underwater fingerprint made of voltage and time. In a world where the eyes are dimmed, this is how you remain known. What makes this more remarkable is the eel's control. It can modulate the timing, intensity, and pattern of its electric output with extreme precision. A single shock can stun a fish. A rapid series can force prey to reveal itself. Researchers have observed eels using electric bursts not to harm, but to cause involuntary twitching in hidden prey. A fish beneath sand might remain perfectly still, invisible. But when the eel pulses in quick succession, the fish flinches, and the eel finds it. This isn't violence, it's strategy. A spark becomes a spotlight. There's even more to this dance. In moments of danger, electric eels may leap from the water and press their bodies against intruders, delivering shocks above the surface. It is rare but real, a defensive maneuver that startles even those who thought they were safe. In this way, the eel becomes more than a fish. It becomes a living battery, its body the wire, the water its conductor. It is both storm and stream, gentle and guarded, an ambassador from a world we barely understand. The origin of this power lies in the very structure of its body. Unlike most fish, whose muscles focus on swimming, the electric eel's body has evolved into an organ of output. Its muscle cells have changed over millions of years into electrocytes, flat, specialized cells that store and release ions in bursts. Each individual electrocyte produces a tiny voltage. But when lined up in series, thousands upon thousands, the eel creates a biological capacitor, a circuit that fires on command. And when it fires, the result is not chaos but clarity, an intentional signal. This is not just a hunting tool, it is a way of being. Even young eels, only a few weeks old, begin to produce electric pulses. They learn their world through those pulses. They do not open their eyes and see. They emit, receive, and interpret. Like children learning a language by speaking it aloud into the dark, they shape their understanding through voltage. With time, their pulses become more refined. They learn the language of the river, the meaning of each ripple, and in doing so, they become themselves. There is something humbling in this. A creature so often misunderstood, once feared and avoided, now studied with awe. Early explorers thought the electric eel was a monster, a danger lurking in the shallows. Even now, its name carries weight. Electric. It sounds like threat, like danger, but the eel is not cruel. It does not shock out of malice. It defends, it hunts, it maps, it speaks. Its power is not rage, it is refinement. It is one of the most precise tools in nature, a tool born of muscle, honed by time. As we learn more, we also begin to dream. Scientists imagine technologies inspired by the eel's soft-bodied batteries, flexible power sources, artificial muscles. The eel's ability to generate electricity inside a wet, moving body is something we have not replicated, even in our best machines. What if we could? What if, by studying this silent swimmer, We unlock ways to power devices without wires, to sense danger without sight, to communicate through currents rather than noise. But perhaps the greatest wonder is not what it might teach us, but how it already exists, how it has shaped a world of silence into a world of signals, how it has made a home in darkness and turned it into light, not literal light but understanding, the kind of light that comes from sensing what cannot be seen. The eel does not need a spotlight. It makes its own, one burst, one pulse, one flicker at a time. And so it glides, quiet as ever, beneath a canopy of green. Above, birds call and monkeys chatter. But below, in the hush of the river, the eel listens with skin and sings without sound. It does not fear the dark. It has turned the dark into its own instrument. And in doing so, it reminds us that life finds a way to know, even when all light is gone. And now, as the current slows and the afternoon light turns amber above the river canopy, the electric eel continues its quiet passage, a streak of thought moving through the water. It does not seek attention. It does not linger in the memory of its own voltage. It simply moves, sensing the world through patterns it alone can read. Surrounded by life it does not disturb unless necessary. Its power remains, always ready not as a weapon but as a presence. To watch it glide is to feel as if the river itself is breathing with quiet electricity. Though the eel may appear solitary, it is not always alone. In some regions and under certain conditions, electric eels have been observed hunting together, a surprising cooperation among creatures once thought to be strictly individualistic. They circle prey like wolves in water, driving smaller fish into tight balls, then stunning them in bursts. This is not common behavior, and scientists are still unraveling what it means. But it suggests something even more complex, that this animal, with its secret pulses, may also understand the timing of others, that it may coordinate, that its sparks may sometimes sync with another's. The eel's life is long by river standards, up to 15 years in the wild, even longer in captivity. Over that time, its voltage grows, its senses sharpen. It remembers its roots, its hidden hollows in the riverbank, its favorite hunting pools. Memory in fish is often underestimated, but the eel defies assumptions. It learns. It adjusts. It does not forget where the world once answered its call. When it rests, it curls gently beneath roots or in shadowed shallows, body loose, pulses slow. Even in rest, it continues to emit low-frequency signals, never entirely silent. Its world never fades to black. Instead, it hums on softly, a subdued awareness. The eel sleeps inside a net of its own perception, guarded not by teeth or armor but by knowing. If something disturbs the water, if a shape enters its space, it knows. Before it sees, before it hears, before it must act. There's something beautiful in this, a life lived with such sensitivity, such readiness, such careful precision. The electric eel does not overreact. It calculates, it considers, and when it acts, it does so cleanly. A jolt, a curl, a swallow, then stillness again. No chase, no struggle, just decision. And perhaps that is why we find ourselves drawn to it. Because even though we cannot sense what it senses, we recognize the elegance in how it lives. It does not waste. It does not destroy without reason. It is powerful, yes, but also restrained. In a world where force is often loud, the eel teaches us about quiet force. The kind that waits, that listens, that knows its own boundaries. Its ecosystem, too, relies on this balance. The murky rivers and flooded forests of the Amazon are filled with surprises, sharp-beaked birds, venomous fish, amphibians that sing at dusk. In this wild tangle, the eel plays its part with subtle grace. It keeps smaller populations in check. It provides food for the few predators that dare take the risk. And its electric field weaves silently through it all, touching the fabric of the ecosystem like a conductor's invisible baton. Over time, the eel's energy does not fade but refines. Its young, so vulnerable in their early days, begin with low voltage. But as they grow, they gain control, the ability to stun, to sense, to sculpt their pulses into purpose. They are not taught. They simply become. Each spark a step closer to the silent mastery that defines their kind. And still, despite all we've learned, so much remains unknown. Why do their pulses vary from day to night? How do they choose when to shock and when to retreat? Do they recognize individuals beyond electric signature, perhaps through some subtle current of memory? These questions linger, and the eel offers no answers, only more movement, more silence, more gentle power beneath the surface. In some laboratories, engineers and biologists gather around tanks that glow only with instruments. There are no lights in the eel's world, only wires, sensors, and the echo of voltage. They listen for pulses, they trace the source of power. They imagine machines that could mimic this natural battery, soft, flexible, wet, and alive. But always the eel stays one step ahead. It is not a tool, it is not a machine. It is a life that hums in code, not for us but for itself. There is something sacred in that independence. The eel does not need to be understood to continue being. Its mystery is not an invitation for conquest, but a reminder that wonder still exists. Not on distant planets or in hidden vaults, but here, in the slow loops of a river fish with lightning in its skin. So let us leave it there, slipping between roots, vanishing behind a swirl of silt. It does not announce itself. It does not need to. It will hunt when hungry, rest when full, breathe when the surface calls, and always, always it will speak in pulses too soft for our ears but loud in their meaning. Because even in the quietest corners of the world, something is always speaking. And sometimes, that voice is not sound at all but electricity, shaped into thought, wrapped in water and carried away by a fin in motion. In the slow-moving waters of warm oceans, where time itself seems to float like dust in sunlight, there exists a creature whose life follows a different rhythm. It has no heart to race, no brain to remember, and yet it pulses on, softly and silently, almost as if moved by thought. This is the jellyfish, translucent, ancient, adrift. But among these quiet drifters, one species seems to have stepped outside the story of aging altogether. Turritopsis doana asterisk, often called the immortal jellyfish, does something extraordinary. When faced with damage, hunger, or age, it does not die. It goes back. It starts again. This creature is tiny, barely larger than a fingernail, and almost invisible in the water. You could miss it entirely unless you were looking for the shimmer of its bell, the faint trailing lines of its tentacles, the slow pulse of its body contracting in rhythm with the sea. It looks delicate, almost insubstantial, but inside this softness is a secret. When it nears the end of its life, it does not decay. Instead, it transforms. It reverses its cycle, returning to its earliest form, a polyp, a kind of jellyfish seed. And from that form it begins again, growing once more into a jellyfish, like a memory unspooling back into the present. This process is known as transdifferentiation, the ability of one cell type to transform into another. It is a biological rewrite, a return to innocence. Most creatures move forward in time: birth, growth, decline. But Turritopsis refuses the final act. It collapses inward like a star folding into itself and re-emerges where it began. A soft, circular path instead of a straight line. It is not resurrection. It is unaging, a quiet refusal to finish. Scientists first discovered this jellyfish's strange gift almost by accident, while studying specimens in aquariums. They watched as individuals, stressed or damaged, reverted to their polyp stage, a stage typically seen only in juveniles. Not once, but repeatedly. It was as if the jellyfish had found a loophole in biology's oldest rule, that all things must end. In labs around the world, researchers now watch these delicate animals, waiting for the moment when they stop dying and start again. And yet, despite the headlines, they are not truly immortal. In the wild, many are eaten. Others die from disease or physical harm. But what sets Turritopsis apart is not its invincibility, but its potential, the possibility, under the right conditions, to cycle endlessly, to undo the wear of time, to begin again, not as a continuation, but as a return, a body that forgets its age and rewrites its purpose. To understand how unusual this is, consider how most animals live. Cells divide, specialize, and commit to their roles. Heart cells stay heart cells, nerve cells remain nerves. When damage occurs, the body repairs within limits. But Turritopsis throws away the limits. It uncommits. A mature jellyfish cell already assigned its task can become something else, a cell of the stalk, or of the foot, or of the mouth. It is as if a hand decided it wished to be a leaf again. Not forward evolution, but retreat, a willing, graceful undoing. Its life begins like many others as a fertilized egg drifting in open water. That egg becomes a larva, then finds a surface, a rock, a shell, and attaches. It grows into a colony of polyps, small, tree-like structures that bud off tiny medusae. These become jellyfish, swimming freely, pulsing through the sea. This is the expected path. But when damaged or stressed, the medusa stage reverses. It sinks, attaches again, and becomes a polyp, as if adulthood were only optional. And then it repeats. Imagine a life where, upon aging, you could simply melt back into childhood, not with memory but with form. Start again with new cells, a new body, but the same quiet essence. There is no consciousness in the jellyfish, no awareness of its cycle. But to the scientist's eye, it is a dance with death that never quite ends. A loop, a loop, a loop. The jellyfish does not age in the way we do. There are no wrinkles, no fatting thoughts, no long goodbyes. Its body is made of gelatinous tissue, mesoglea, and thin layers of cells. It moves by contracting muscles along its bell, pushing water beneath it, floating upward like a ghost with intent. It has no heart, no lungs, no centralized brain. But it has a nervous net, a lattice of sensing cells that tell it where to move, when to pulse, how to respond to light or the brush of a current. It is awareness without thinking, life without language, but still unmistakably alive. And in this simple life, something profound. A being that defies time not by conquering it, but by retreating from it. Not running faster, but revering. Not stretching out its days, but folding them inward. The jellyfish is not trying to be eternal. It simply is. Soft, silent, resistant by yielding. Some scientists believe that understanding this process might one day help humans. If we could learn how to prompt our cells to safely change identity, we might repair organs, reverse diseases, even delay aging. Not immortality, perhaps, but resilience. Not magic, but mimicry. The jellyfish becomes not a fantasy, but a teacher, one whose lessons are made of biology, not dreams. And still it floats, beneath waves that catch the sun, among plankton and silt and drifting threads of seaweed. Most of its kind will never live long enough to reverse. They will be swallowed, broken, lost. But a few, when pressed by stress or hunger, will pause, and in that pause they will dissolve into the memory of what they once were, and begin again. In that silent transformation lies the quiet poetry of life that will not end in the usual way, not because it fights, but because it forgets, and in that forgetting it becomes new, again and again. Let us drift now into the deeper layers of this quiet creature's mystery, where the boundaries of aging blur like fog on the ocean's surface. The jellyfish, so delicate that the sea itself seems to hold its breath to let it pass, does not resist the passage of time by growing stronger. It does not build defenses or toughen its skin. Instead, it simply loosens its grip. And when pushed too far by hunger, by injury, by changes in the sea, it slips out of the story altogether and writes itself anew. Scientists who study this transformation are still peeling back its layers. Under a microscope, the process of transdifferentiation looks like a kind of biological dance. Cells that once had firm identities, muscle, nerve, digestive, begin to dissolve their roles. They return to a stem-like state, capable of becoming many things. Then, guided by unseen instructions, they take new form. The jellyfish's body collapses inward, reattaches to a surface, and begins again as a polyp. It is like fire becoming ember, then flame again, not a straight path, but a cycle lit with memoryless purpose. This reversal isn't hasty. It takes time, patience, silence. In the aquarium or the wild, the jellyfish does not appear frantic. Its transformation is not dramatic but soft, a slow folding in, a gentle rearranging of purpose. And then when the new form is ready, it begins to bud off again. New medusae drift away, unaware of the story their cells have told. Each one, in essence, is a continuation of the same life, not cloned but cycled. not paused but rewritten. To understand how rare this is, imagine a butterfly returning to a caterpillar and then later becoming a butterfly again, or a tree ungrowing into a seed, then rising once more. This kind of backward movement is almost unknown in nature. Most life forms commit to their stage, but Turritopsis holds its place loosely as if life itself were clay, not stone. And in doing so, it challenges our ideas of time, age, even identity. In the ocean, where change is constant, tides rising and falling, temperatures shifting, light filtering through clouds of plankton, such flexibility is more than wonder. It is wisdom. The jellyfish does not resist change, it absorbs it. And when conditions turn harsh, it does not break. It lets go, floats backward, and begins again. This is not cowardice. It is elegance, a mastery not of force but of yield. It's easy to overlook the jellyfish. They have no shells to rattle, no teeth to flash. They drift without sound, pulse without urgency. But in that stillness is complexity. Some jellyfish have eyes not like ours but clusters of light-sensitive cells that sense direction and brightness. Some respond to gravity, to pressure, to touch. And though they lack a centralized brain, they possess neural nets that allow for coordination, response, even rudimentary choice. And Turritopsis, it lives near the surface, often in warm seas, feeding on plankton and microscopic life. Its tentacles trail behind it like thoughts. Its bell pulses with barely perceptible rhythm. It is not fast, it is not strong, but it is, in one very real sense, unbroken, not by time, not yet. In some experiments, jellyfish have repeated this reversal multiple times. Injured, aged, starved, they simply dissolve and return. There are limits, of course. If the stress is too great or the damage too severe, the body may fail. But the potential is there. A kind of living rewrite, triggered not by choice but by necessity. A body that understands when to move forward and when to go back. This doesn't make them immortal in the fairy tale sense. They can be eaten, crushed, poisoned. They live in a world of constant threat, but their bodies do not decay in the same linear way as most others. They loop. They spiral. They step away from endings. And this, more than eternal life, is the miracle. Not that they cannot die, but that they sometimes choose instead to begin again. In these reversals, something curious happens. The cells become younger not just in function, but in form. The very architecture of age disappears. There are no scars, no lingering signs of what was. A jellyfish that has reverted and regrown does not carry its past like a burden. It carries it like water, flowing, unseen, part of its current shape but not its memory. There is something beautiful in that, a creature that forgets how to age. That lets go of endings not out of denial, but out of design. And what if we could do the same? Already, researchers are studying the mechanisms behind these changes, how genes switch off and on, how proteins shift, how one identity becomes another. In the jellyfish, they see a model for regenerative medicine, for repairing damaged hearts, aging skin, broken nerves. Not by replacing tissue, but by helping the body remember how it began. By reminding cells how to become soft again, young again, possible again. But even if we never borrow its gift, the jellyfish offers us something else, a story. A reminder that life is not always forward motion, that sometimes healing is a return, that in surrender there can be strength, that softness is not weakness, it is wisdom. The jellyfish does not resist its cycle, it moves with it, in and out, rise and return, growth, collapse, growth again. And so it floats night after night beneath stars it does not see, in seas it does not map. It eats, it moves, it pulses. And sometimes when the world becomes too sharp, too sudden, too cruel, it lets go. It becomes still, then new, then still again. Each time not less alive but differently alive. In this dance, it teaches something soft and sacred, that the story of life may not be a line but a circle, that time may bend, that the end may sometimes be the beginning wearing a different shape, and that even the smallest, simplest creature may carry within it the greatest secret, how to begin again when all seems lost. Now let us drift toward the quiet end of this tale, if such a thing exists for a creature that does not truly end. The jellyfish, translucent and pulse-driven, is not an emblem of power. It does not cut through water with speed or dominate its surroundings. It does not claim territory or roar for attention. And yet, it has outlived most species on Earth. Long before humans walked on land, long before dinosaurs thundered across ancient ferns, jellyfish swam beneath rising moons and shifting tides, their soft bells beating the rhythm of ancient oceans. They are time's quiet passengers, not racing forward, but floating through. And this particular jellyfish, Turritopsis doornia, carries a gift so strange it seems borrowed from myth. It reminds us that nature is not only about survival, but about adaptation, about gentle tricks folded into small lives. The ocean is full of creatures with fierce strength, teeth, venom, claws, but the jellyfish endures by being soft. It survives not by fighting change, but by becoming it. Its power lies in surrender, in the willingness to reshape itself again and again when the world demands it. Most animals die not only from injury or illness, but from the long accumulation of time. Cells lose their spark. DNA falters in its copying. Proteins misfold, systems fail. But in the jellyfish, time becomes a negotiable thing. Not because it stops the clock, but because it steps off the clock entirely. When the medusa grows weary or worn, it does not age toward death. It retreats, folds inward, and becomes the beginning once more. And though this loop is not guaranteed, the possibility is profound. In this, the jellyfish offers a new shape to life. Not a straight line, not a slow climb followed by decline, but a circle, a softness, an unhurried return, and it is not alone in its gentleness. So many of the ocean's survivors are not the ones who resisted most, but the ones who yielded best. Coral building patiently, sea grass bending with the current, plankton drifting with the tide. Life in the ocean often belongs to the small and the flexible, and the jellyfish is both. What we take from this isn't just scientific curiosity, though there is plenty of that. It's also a quiet sense of comfort. The idea that beginnings may not be lost forever, that the past can be accessed not just in memory but in form. That nature has, hidden in its depths, examples of restoration not as fantasy but as fact. The jellyfish does not preach, does not prove. It simply shows, again and again. And while it does not think in the way we do, no thoughts, no memories, no language, it participates in a process that stirs the deepest questions. What does it mean to start over? What does it mean to return to a previous self? The jellyfish does not know it is young again. It does not compare past to present. But in its cells, a kind of wisdom moves, encoded not in words but in function. A decision without thought, a lesson without speech. This kind of biological poetry has drawn scientists across disciplines. Geneticists explore how its DNA allows such change. Developmental biologists trace the steps of its regression. Medical researchers wonder if this reversal could someday lead to therapies for humans, ways to coax damaged tissue into repair, to teach cells how to undo decay. Could a heart remember how to be new? Could a neuron, frayed with age, recall the clean spark of its first connection? These are distant dreams. The jellyfish offers no simple answers. Its secret is layered and quiet, not a miracle but a mechanism. And perhaps that's the most beautiful part, that immortality as we imagine it may not be about escaping death, but about learning to reshape life. To let go of what no longer serves. To begin again, not as who we were, but as something new that still remembers how to become. In this way, the jellyfish becomes a metaphor as much as a marvel. It is the reminder that healing is possible, that change is not always forward, that sometimes the path to survival is not resistance but retreat, and that retreat, when guided by wisdom, can be a form of power, not the power of domination but the power of renewal. So let us picture it now, drifting near the edge of the reef beneath the dappled light of shallow water. Around it other creatures move with purpose, darting fish, gliding rays, curious shrimp. But the jellyfish moves differently. Slowly, softly, it does not rush. Its tentacles trail like hair in the wind. Its bell expands and contracts again and again. A breath without lungs, a heartbeat without a heart. It may have been here before, not this individual perhaps, but this life, this pattern. this ripple of being that refuses to fade, and it may come again, when the tide changes, when the world grows cold, when damage strikes. The jellyfish will fold inward, plant itself, and return, from adult to child, from swimmer to seed, and from that seed it will bloom once more as if nothing had ever ended. And we, watching from the edge of science, of wonder, can only marvel, not just at its form, but at its meaning. In a world obsessed with growth, with progress, with moving ever forward, the jellyfish whispers another truth, that starting over is not failure, that going back is not defeat, that life, real life, sometimes moves in circles, and that within those circles there is room for forever. So let it drift, let it pulse, let it begin again. It needs no permission, it carries no regret. It is soft, unhurried, ancient, and new. And in the hush of its movement, we are reminded that even in nature there are stories that never quite end, only change their shape and begin again. In the dim stillness of tropical nights, where moonlight barely breaks through the canopy and the forest hums with secrets, there flies a creature with wings as quiet as falling ash. It does not hunt, it does not sting. It simply drifts, drawn by the scent of salt, the shimmer of moisture, the presence of something tender. This is the tear-drinking moth, a creature so gentle in touch, yet so strange in purpose. It lands not on flowers but on faces, not for blood but for tears. It sounds like a dream, a moth brushing softly against the closed eyelid of a sleeping bird, a mammal, even a human, and with its thin, curled proboscis, it sips the tears like nectar. But this is no legend. It is real. In parts of Asia, Africa, and South America, naturalists have observed these moths perching delicately near the eyes of animals, extracting the salt-rich fluid with delicate care. They drink not with urgency but with patience, sometimes lingering for minutes, fluttering only when disturbed. Their wings do not beat hard. They hover, hold, taste. What draws them is salt, the mineral of memory, of blood, of sweat, of tears. In dense, humid forests where sodium is scarce, creatures evolve to seek it in unusual places. Some moths have developed a gentle strategy. They take what is given involuntarily. Tears are not just sorrow, they are chemistry, water, proteins, minerals, and for these moths a nutritional goldmine. But it is the behavior more than the biology that entrances. To sip from an eye is to step into vulnerability, a moment when most creatures are unaware, asleep, unguarded. Yet the moth causes no pain. Its touch is so light that even the most skittish bird remains still. A moth perches on its head, proboscis curled into the corner of its eye, sipping silently. There is no harm, only contact. The act has a name: lacrophagy, tear feeding. Some moths do it for sustenance. Others, like certain tropical species, seem to do it to gather minerals for reproduction, storing sodium to later pass on through their sperm. The tears then become part of a generational gift. Minerals pass not just through bloodlines, but through moments of nocturnal stillness. And there's more. Some species don't stop at tears. They've been observed sipping sweat from sleeping animals or licking salt from mud, even from carcasses. But the eye is special. It offers not just salt, but softness. The curve of a closed lid, the quiet of slumber, the safety of stillness. And the moth, in return, offers only presence, a moment of connection that disappears before dawn. The proboscis of these moths is a marvel of design. Long, coiled, and flexible, it can extend to reach into the tiniest crevices, guided not by sight but by scent, humidity, and temperature. When it finds the tear duct, it unrolls and dips inside, drawing fluid with capillary action. No suction, no force, just touch and flow, nature's gentlest sip. This act, so delicate, touches something primal. Tears are private. They are signs of emotion, of pain, of cleansing. To have them taken is intimate. And yet the moth does not know this. It does not know it is touching sorrow or sleep. It only knows the chemical signature of what it needs. Its body responds to need, not meaning. But we, watching, cannot help but attach wonder to it. In some parts of the world, local folklore has wrapped the tear-drinking moth in mystery. It is seen as a spirit, a messenger, a thief of dreams. Some say it brings sadness, others believe it carries prayers. A creature so silent, so odd, invites stories. But the truth is simpler and stranger. It is not magic. It is biology shaped by scarcity, by adaptation. A strategy honed over generations finds salt where others do not. In the darkness of the rainforest, where competition is fierce and every resource matters, the ability to drink from another's tears is a niche carved by patience. The moth does not chase, does not fight. It waits, it feels, it lands. Its wings may be speckled or plain, brown or pale green, and its flight almost imperceptible. You might never see it, even if it lands upon your cheek. There is a kind of reverence in the act, as if the moth understands that to feed in this way, it must disturb nothing. It must be lighter than thought, quieter than breath. And so it has become exactly that, a presence that passes through the night like a question left unanswered. Its life is short. Most moths live only days or weeks. They emerge from their cocoons, feed, mate, and vanish. But in that time, the tear drinker fulfills its quiet role, not just as pollinator or food source, but as a participant in something far more poetic. It becomes part of the emotional landscape of the forest, not in feeling, but in form. A creature shaped by the traces of sadness, of sleep, of salt. Even when we try to understand it purely as science, it resists. It is too gentle for equations, too strange for strict categories. It belongs to a world that is more than logical, a world where survival does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, with velvet wings and a mouth made only for tasting grief. And so we follow it, this moth who drinks tears, through the hush of the understory, beneath branches heavy with moisture, along streams that glitter under the moon. We do not know its thoughts if it thinks at all, but we know its need. And in that need we find a kind of kinship, because all life in its own way seeks comfort, seeks connection, even if it comes from something as fragile, as fleeting as a single tear. Let us move closer now, deeper into the quiet biology of this gentle behavior, where necessity meets mystery in the dark. The tear-drinking moth, for all its strangeness, is not an anomaly. It is the result of evolution pressed gently against the limits of what the night can offer. In many parts of the world, where soils are low in sodium and flowers do not provide the minerals required for life, creatures must look elsewhere. And so, this moth has turned its attention to the most delicate source imaginable, the eyes of sleeping beings. It is not alone in this behavior. In the forests of Thailand, in the river edges of Brazil, and in the jungles of Madagascar, different species of moths have been found with the same habit. Each species slightly different in color and wing, but all carrying the same tool, a modified proboscis capable of reaching into the corner of an eyelid. These adaptations are not decorative. They are precise, purposeful, evolved over time not for beauty, but for function. The structure of the mouthparts is often stiffened and barbed, not to cause pain, but to hold their shape as the moth balances on skin and draws the fluid it needs. And what it draws is more than moisture. A tear contains electrolytes, enzymes, sugars, urea, and above all, salt. Sodium and chloride, essential minerals for nerve transmission, muscle function, and cellular balance. Insects, especially those that do not feed on blood, often lack access to these minerals. They do not sweat, they do not cry, and so they must borrow. The moth, unlike the mosquito or the tick, does not pierce the skin. It waits for the body to give, and then gently it takes. This gentle theft does not seem to harm. Studies have shown that animals rarely react. The bird continues to sleep. The mammal does not flinch. Even humans, when visited, often remain unaware. Some awaken to a brief tickle, a flicker of a wing against the cheek, but more often the moth is gone before the moment is fully felt. Its body is light. Its intentions are quiet. In some regions, scientists have studied the salivary enzymes of these moths. Like those of butterflies who sip from fermenting fruit or damp rocks, their fluids may help dissolve certain substances, easing the process of absorption. But there is little aggression here, nothing that stings or burns. The act is not invasive. It is, in every sense, a request, one that is answered only by silence. And while tears are the moth's most poetic target, they are not its only one. Many of these moths are also drawn to the sweat of sleeping mammals or to the tears of reptiles. Even turtles resting at night may find themselves visited by a whisper of wings. In all cases, it is the salt that calls them. The salt that binds all bodies, that traces the edge between comfort and need. In the evolutionary tree, this behavior may seem like a small detail, a footnote in the story of moths, but to those who study life at its smallest, it is a revelation. It speaks of adaptation without violence, of a species finding its place not through dominance but through grace. The tear-drinking moth does not overpower. It balances. It calibrates. It waits for the world to open and then steps lightly into the space it is offered. Even its flight speaks of this. Moths are creatures of darkness, drawn to the dim, to the moist, to the quiet. Their wings are scaled and soft, their patterns often plain, built for camouflage more than color, but in their motion there is art. The slow, tumbling flutter, the sudden pause midair, the quiet hover practiced and perfect. It is a kind of dance, refined not for show but for precision. And when a moth approaches an animal, the sequence is almost ritualistic. It lands near the head. It waits. It tests the temperature, the stillness, the scent. And only when all conditions are right does it begin, unfurling the proboscis, placing it gently into the crease of the eye and sipping. Not once, but rhythmically, like a heartbeat slowed, like breathing. Some researchers have wondered if this behavior affects the animal's long term. Could it spread bacteria, cause irritation? So far, there is little evidence. These interactions appear to be clean, quiet, untroubled, a moment of one-sided intimacy that leaves no wound. The only trace is in the memory of the observer, the scientist, the sleeper, the story keeper. And what of the moth's life beyond this moment? Most tear-drinking moths follow the same brief arc as their kin. Born from an egg, they emerge as caterpillars, feeding on leaves, growing, shedding, preparing. Then comes the stillness of the cocoon, a place where everything becomes fluid and uncertain. In that darkness, legs dissolve, wings form, and the body reimagines itself into something airborne. When the moth finally emerges, it has no mouth for chewing, only the long, curling tongue of a sipper, a seeker. It is this life stage, the adult, the flyer, that drinks the tears. Not out of aggression, but out of chemistry. It may not even feed every night. It may drink only when the body tells it to, when the minerals run low, when the air smells of sleeping life. And when it does, it seeks not the eye itself, but the evidence of emotion, of heat, of salt, of the soft signal that something living has paused long enough to offer vulnerability. This behavior, once thought rare, is now believed to be more common. With improved tools, night cameras, field sensors, researchers are discovering that many nocturnal insects engage in fluid feeding from animals. Some drink from open wounds. Others seek mucus, sweat, tears. But only the moth does so with such gentleness, such lack of harm, such eerie silence. It asks for what it needs in a way that can barely be called asking. It exists between need and reverence. And in that space, it teaches something rare, that survival can be graceful, that even hunger, when shaped by patience, becomes almost sacred, that life, even at its smallest and strangest, carries rituals we are only beginning to see. The moth does not cry. It does not feel sorrow, but it is drawn to the trace of it, the salt left behind, the quiet invitation in a closed eye, and somehow that makes its presence all the more profound. Now, as night deepens and the air thickens with the breath of sleeping forests, the moth continues its silent work. It does not hunt or feed in the ways that stir alarm. It does not howl, chase, or sting. It hovers, it waits. And when the moment is right, when the animal is still, when the eye is moist with sleep or residue, it lands, not like a predator but like a secret. Its wings fold gently around its body, its legs find purchase on fur or feathers, and it drinks. Not from blood or wounds, but from the soft corner of an eye. To witness such a moment is to question what survival can look like. Here is a creature that exists through such quiet, such care, that it seems almost unreal. A moth, delicate and weightless, depending not on violence or force, but on the brief vulnerability of another being. It does not cause harm, and yet it takes. It does not disrupt, and yet it touches. And in that fragile exchange, Both creatures, the giver and the taker, remain mostly unchanged. But not unnoticed, because even in its gentleness, the moth speaks to something deeper. It reminds us that the boundaries between species are not always wide, that one life can reach into another not with harm but with need, that even across great evolutionary distances, one being might find its sustenance in the traces left behind by another's feelings. Tears are more than water. They are the body's silent song of emotion, of cleansing, of memory. And the moth, perhaps unknowingly, becomes part of that song. Its journey may span only a few nights. The adult phase of most moths is short. After emerging from its pupa, it has but days to feed, to mate, to ensure its line continues. And in that narrow window, it finds time to pause near an eye and sip what nature offers. It will soon disappear, its wings faded, its body returned to the forest floor. But its role, the collection of salts, the delivery of nutrients to the next generation, will continue, carried forward by eggs not yet laid, by caterpillars not yet born. In some ways, this fragile dependence speaks of the larger world, a world where every life, no matter how soft or small, leaves an echo. The bird will never know it gave. The human will never recall the visitor. But the moth will have fed. The salt will have passed from one life to another. And in the vast web of forest relationships, that single exchange will ripple outward, unseen but real. The idea that something so seemingly passive could be so precise is what draws scientists again and again. Field biologists return to the same places, setting up cameras and lights, waiting through humid nights for that one moment, the flicker of wings, the hovering touch, the slow dipping of the proboscis. And when it happens, it always feels like a kind of magic. Not because it's rare, but because it's quiet, because it asks nothing and yet shows everything. In recent studies, researchers have begun to document not just the act but the context, which animals are targeted at what times, under what conditions. And the patterns are emerging. The moths often choose animals at rest whose eyes remain slightly open or damp. They prefer certain species, perhaps due to body temperature or skin chemistry. And some moths, once having fed from a particular host, seem to return again the next night, a kind of memory or a habit etched into instinct. But even as we study, we must remember, the moth's story is not ours to write. We observe, but we cannot fully enter its experience. We do not know how it selects its host, or whether it experiences preference or chance. It does not reason in the way we do. It follows scent, humidity, the pull of unseen gradients in the night. It is a creature of signal and response, tuned to the chemistry of the dark. Still, we are touched by it, because to see such tenderness in the act of feeding challenges the way we think about life. It tells us that survival is not always loud. That need does not always come with sharpness. That taking can happen without tearing. And that sometimes life touches life in a way so gentle, it leaves no mark, only wonder. And as dawn begins to rise, the moth departs. It lifts from the animal's face like a dream released, spiraling upward through lightning mist. It leaves behind no trace, not a wound, not a memory, only the faintest motion in the air. It will find shade, rest, hide under leaves until the sun sinks once more. Then, in the next velvet darkness, it will begin again. For the forest, the act continues. One more whisper in the endless rhythm of need and gift. One more breath in the long night of interconnected lives. And for us, it lingers not in the eye but in the mind. A story told in softness. A lesson in survival written not in teeth or claw but in the curl of a proboscis and the patience to wait for tears. In this creature, the strange becomes sacred. The subtle becomes luminous. And the act of drinking a tear becomes not strange but beautiful. A reminder that life is not only built from struggle, it is also built from pauses, from contact, from moments so small they can barely be seen, yet carry meaning deeper than we know. And so we remember the moth, not as a symbol of fragility, but as one of quiet courage. It teaches us that in a world of storms there are still those who choose to land softly, to take only what is freely given, and to disappear before the light returns. And that sometimes, The gentlest touch leaves the deepest impression, not in the body, but in the story that follows. In the shallow coral lagoons where sunlight spills through water like liquid glass, a small creature patrols the seabed with an intensity that belies its size. It moves with confidence, its body armored in color, its claws sharp with purpose. But what truly sets it apart lies not in its strength, but in its sight. This is the mantis shrimp, a creature no longer than your hand, yet blessed with one of the most complex visual systems known in the animal kingdom. While humans see the world in a narrow ribbon of color, the mantis shrimp lives inside a rainbow far beyond our imagination. At first glance, it seems like a crustacean painted in fragments: turquoise legs, orange armor, eyes that glow with lavender and green. Some call it the thumb splitter, a nod to the terrifying speed and force with which it can punch its prey. But behind that ferocity lies something more remarkable. Vision so layered, so nuanced, it reshapes what we believe is possible. Where we see red, green, and blue, the mantis shrimp sees not just more colors, but entirely new dimensions of light. Its eyes are mounted on stalks, each one capable of moving independently, scanning its surroundings with uncanny precision. But it's the structure within the eyes that holds the real magic. Each compound eye is divided into three parts, allowing it to gauge depth with just one eye, a feat we can only achieve with two. This trifold vision grants it trinocular sight from each eye, as if every glance is already a triangulation, a calculation of place and form and motion. Beneath the surface of those complex eyes lies a staggering arrangement of photoreceptor cells. Humans have three types of cone cells to detect color: red, green, and blue. Some birds and butterflies have 4 or 5. The mantis shrimp, it has 16. 12 of them dedicated solely to color, including parts of the ultraviolet spectrum. It can detect polarized light that vibrates in specific directions, and even circularly polarized light, something no other known animal can do so completely. To the mantis shrimp, light is not just brightness. It is texture. It is geometry. It is a layered language we have never learned to speak. Imagine living in a world where every glint of a fish scale, every ripple of sunlight on sand, every subtle shimmer of coral is painted not in the few colors we know, but in dozens more hues with no name, gradients we cannot describe, patterns etched in invisible frequencies. The mantis shrimp does not just live in color. It swims inside it. Every movement is a brushstroke, every shadow a symphony, every reflection a clue. Scientists have tried to understand how this visual system works and what it means for the shrimp's behavior. Some believe it helps in identifying prey among complex coral backdrops. Others suggest it allows for individual recognition, that shrimp might see patterns in each other's shells invisible to our eyes. Communication, camouflage, combat, all wrapped in light. In the mantis shrimp's world, the visible becomes personal. What we see as dull brown may be, to them, a shimmering message in radiant code. And then there's the shrimp's ability to see polarized light, which it likely uses for hunting and navigation. Light reflects differently off various surfaces. Polarization can help detect prey hiding beneath sand or sense subtle contours in the ocean floor. In experiments, mantis shrimp have been shown to recognize patterns made only of polarized light, patterns that appear invisible to us, even with magnification. It is a secret code of vision, written in physics, understood in biology. Its world is a place of beauty and violence. The mantis shrimp is a predator after all. It uses specialized limbs, clubs, or spears, depending on the species, to strike with extraordinary force. The clubbing variety can deliver a punch with the acceleration of a bullet, shattering shells, breaking glass aquarium walls, creating shockwaves that stun nearby fish. But these bursts of force are not wild. They are calculated. The shrimp must judge distance, speed, and angle perfectly. Its remarkable eyes are not ornaments. They are tools of precision. Even so, its violence is quick, almost surgical. A strike, a crack, a withdrawal, it feeds and moves on. It does not linger. Its claws are folded away again, its colors return to calm. It spends its days patrolling territory, burrowing in sand, mating, defending. It lives a life built on perception, always reading the world in ways we cannot imagine, its reality shaped by patterns invisible to us. But perhaps the most astonishing part of its vision is how it simplifies complexity. One might assume that with so many photoreceptors, the mantis shrimp's brain must perform complex calculations, comparing signals to build color. But studies suggest otherwise. It may in fact do less work than ours. Its eyes appear to encode colors directly, mapping wavelengths in a streamlined, efficient way. Where we analyze, it recognizes. Where we interpret, it sees. Its eye movements are strange, too. They do not simply scan back and forth. They twist, roll, rotate. The stalked eyes move in ways that seem theatrical, almost playful. But this movement allows the shrimp to continually adjust its view, aligning sensors with the angles of light. Its vision is dynamic, not static, a process of constant realignment with the fluid world it inhabits. And still, for all its abilities, the mantis shrimp remains small, unnoticed by most who pass above the surface. Snorkelers may glimpse a flash of color. Divers may hear a faint crack, but few pause long enough to see it clearly. It hides in crevices, under rocks, within the folds of coral. Its world is vast, even though its body is tiny. And it is a reminder that size does not determine wonder. It lives for years, sometimes decades, in the same burrow, often with a mate. Some species are monogamous, forming bonds that last long into their adult lives. Together, they raise young, guard eggs, defend their home. All the while, they move through a world lit with silent fire, painted in radiance no lens can capture. To be a mantis shrimp is to be a seer of things that do not exist to others. To live inside a spectrum that bends around your very sense of being. And so we imagine it there now, curled inside its sandy hollow, peering out with eyes that shimmer like prisms. It does not know its gift is rare. It does not marvel at its own sight. It simply sees. And in that act of seeing, it becomes one of nature's quietest miracles, not because it makes noise or performs tricks, but because it carries inside its eyes a universe of color that we, in all our vision, cannot begin to comprehend. Let us descend even deeper into the spectrum-stained world of the mantis shrimp, where vision is more than a sense. It is a language, a system of meaning, a quiet intelligence woven into the fabric of its being. While humans associate color with emotion or beauty, for the mantis shrimp, color is survival. Color is recognition, territory, courtship, command. Its body pulses with iridescence, not to dazzle the human eye, but to communicate in frequencies we cannot hear. Every flick of light across its armor is a message, and every movement through water is a whisper written in brightness. Though it is often painted as a creature of aggression, the tiny gladiator of the reef, the mantis shrimp is also a planner, a strategist, a builder. Many species dig and maintain intricate burrows, shaping tunnels in coral rubble or soft sediment. These homes are not only shelters from predators but also observation posts. The shrimp peers from its entrance with those stalked, swiveling eyes, constantly adjusting, constantly reading. Its gaze is not casual. It searches for contrast, shadow, texture, movement, signals of danger or dinner. It is both sentry and sniper, watching in a spectrum that leaves most life invisible to it exposed. Polarized light, which the mantis shrimp perceives so vividly, is especially useful in the underwater world, where direct sunlight is filtered and scattered by water and suspended particles. Many aquatic animals reflect polarized light without even knowing it, from the smooth surface of a fish scale to the glisten of an approaching threat. To us, this is hidden. To the shrimp, it is as clear as a neon sign. It can detect these patterns with ease, even from odd angles. This means that while others rely on motion or shape to detect prey, the mantis shrimp uses light itself as a guide. A disturbance in the polarized plane is like a ripple in silence, unmistakable and immediate. And this ability is not just for hunting. It may also serve as a code. Some researchers believe that mantis shrimp communicate with each other using polarization signals, flashing patterns that only they can see. They may advertise territory or readiness to mate or send a warning without ever lifting a claw. These messages are private, invisible to predators, perfectly tuned to their shared perception. It's like passing notes in a language no one else can read, a secret syntax of shimmer. Their bodies reflect these patterns as well. Some species have spots or bands that polarize light in specific ways. These are not just decorative. They are part of an identity system. Mantis shrimp can likely tell each other apart not just by smell or shape, but by the unique way their shells bend light. To us, their shells may appear uniformly colorful, but to another mantis shrimp, each individual may glow with a distinct visual signature, a pattern of polarization that serves as a name. And then there is the strike, the flash of power for which they are most famous. The mechanics of this blow are a marvel of natural engineering. Hidden beneath the surface of the club-like appendage is a spring-loaded system that stores energy through elastic distortion. The mantis shrimp bends its limb backward, storing potential energy, until a latch releases and the limb explodes forward in less than a millisecond. The strike is so fast it causes cavitation bubbles, tiny voids in the water that collapse with a shockwave and even emit light. This phenomenon, called sonoluminescence, means that for a split second, the water itself flashes as if catching fire. The mantis shrimp doesn't just hit its prey. It strikes with a burst of heat and sound, cracking shells open in a brilliant blur. Yet this power, astonishing as it is wielded with discretion. The shrimp rarely attacks without reason. It watches, measures, calculates. It knows its environment intimately, not in the way we might imagine, but in the geometry of reflection and refraction, in the alignment of light waves, in the subtle distortions of its electric-colored world. It makes decisions not through thought, but through pattern recognition embedded in its eyes and nervous system. It acts when the light tells it to act. This makes its vision not a filter, but a pathway, not something through which the world is interpreted, but something through which it is truly known. The mantis shrimp's brain is relatively small, yet its eyes do much of the processing before signals are even sent. The eyes themselves are computational, sorting and filtering information at the source. It's as if the world arrives already labeled: safe, dangerous, food, mate, threat. This efficiency lets the shrimp react with blinding speed. It doesn't need to think twice. The light has already decided. And what about mating? Some species of mantis shrimp form long-term pairs, returning to the same burrow year after year. Within these bonds, visual signals play a crucial role. Mates may flash colors or polarized cues to affirm their bond. The brightness of a shell might signal health. The rhythm of a movement might show interest. And because each shrimp sees in more dimensions of light, these signals are rich and precise, a language of love spoken in reflections. Even in death, the mantis shrimp returns to light. Its molted exoskeleton, shed as it grows, continues to scatter rainbows on the sea floor, feeding the reef in minerals and memory. Its life, though hidden from many eyes, leaves a visible mark. And in this way it participates in something greater, the cycle of reef life, powered by clarity, balance, and perception. For those who study them, mantis shrimp are not just fascinating subjects, but models for invention. Engineers look to their strike mechanics for ideas in material design and robotics. The structure of their clubs, made of impact-resistant materials arranged in complex layers, is being mimicked in the creation of body armor and industrial tools. Their eyes, too, inspire optical technologies, cameras that detect polarized light, sensors that read coded signals in noise. All inspired by a creature that moves unnoticed just beneath the surface. And yet, no matter how much we learn, we will never quite see what they see. No lens we build can replicate the richness of 16 photoreceptors working in harmony. No screen can show us the world the way the mantis shrimp lives it, drenched in colors we cannot name, shadows we cannot detect, movements shaped not by edges but by energy. We may admire it, decode it, simulate it, but we will never feel it. And maybe that is the true gift of the mantis shrimp, not just what it reveals, but what it hides. A reminder that the world is always more than it seems, that beneath every rock, behind every eye, there may be an entire universe of sensation we cannot enter, and that wonder lives not just in the big and loud, but in the small and silent, In a shrimp with eyes like rainbows and a punch like thunder, seeing a world we can only imagine. As the light fades in the shallows and the reef begins to shift toward rest, the mantis shrimp does not sleep like other animals. It retreats into its burrow, curling behind carefully arranged rubble, its eye stalks slowly lowering, not in exhaustion but in awareness. Even in stillness it remains alert, attuned to changes in light and motion in the silent codes of its surroundings. The world outside may darken, but to the mantis shrimp, perception does not fade. It continues to see what we cannot, vibrations in the deep, hues that persist in twilight, secret messages woven into water. This is how it lives, not loudly, not publicly, but vividly. It does not understand that it is different. It does not marvel at its own sight. And yet, it moves through its world with a level of sensory richness that humbles the human imagination. We have satellites and lenses and microscopes, but we will never see what it sees. The mantis shrimp, in its small body, carries an entire language of light. Not metaphorical light, but real electromagnetic truth, physical color, coded reflection. Its world is a painting still drying, still changing stroke by stroke. For all the complexity of its vision, it rarely travels far. It is territorial, loyal to its chosen home, a stretch of coral, a tunnel in limestone, a cluster of stones. Here it feeds, mates, molts, and lives. Its needs are simple, but its awareness is vast. It does not waste energy chasing what cannot be caught. It strikes with efficiency, with certainty. And when it has what it needs, it returns to its burrow and waits, watching, processing, seeing. Some species share these burrows with partners, forming long-term bonds that persist even as the world around them changes. They communicate with flicks of the tail, flashes of polarized reflection, subtle shifts in body language. They may take turns guarding the nest, one outside while the other remains hidden. They raise their young together, sheltering eggs until the larvae are ready to drift into the plankton bloom, becoming part of the ocean's endless story. Even in death, the mantis shrimp returns to the reef. Its body, though armored and formidable, does not resist the slow undoing of time. Scavengers find it. Microbes reclaim its shell. And in that unraveling, it becomes part of the coral's growth. Calcium, protein, pigment, turned into stone and life. But its colors linger longer than its form. Its molted exoskeletons remain for days, sometimes weeks, catching the light like stained glass, drifting in eddies, fragments of brilliance left behind like forgotten brushstrokes. To see one, really see one, is rare. Divers sometimes report flashes, a sudden dart of orange or green, a sparkle under a ledge, the crack of claw against shell. But few wait long enough to watch them work. Fewer still understand what they're seeing. To many, it's just a shrimp, oddly colorful, sometimes aggressive. But to those who know, it is something else. It is a vessel of impossible sight. It is living proof that nature has no obligation to limit itself to our understanding. We look through cameras, scopes, sensors. We chase light through prisms and diagrams. And yet, here is a creature that has been doing it not in theory but in practice for millions of years. Before we knew about photons, before we named ultraviolet, before we invented lenses, the mantis shrimp was watching. Not because it sought to understand, but because that is simply how it is built. There's something beautiful in that, the way evolution writes poetry in biology, the way light becomes language without intention. This shrimp does not need us to admire it. It does not perform. It does not explain. It simply sees. And in seeing, it survives. Perhaps that is the real story, not the power of its punch, not the kaleidoscope of its skin, but the silence of its knowing. It reminds us that much of the world is not designed for our perception, that other lives, other forms of being, are shaped by senses we do not share, that while we write stories in ink and sound, others write theirs in light and silence, and that neither is more true, only different. Some scientists now believe that the mantis shrimp's perception may be too advanced for our models to fully simulate, not because it is magical, but because it evolved along a path that diverged from ours so long ago. We study its anatomy, its behavior, its vision, and still it eludes us. Not because it is trying to, but because we are asking the wrong questions. It does not see to interpret, it sees to live. In this way, the mantis shrimp becomes a kind of mirror not of ourselves, but of what lies beyond us. A reminder that the universe is not limited to our senses. That color continues past violet. That pattern exists in polarization. That time can be measured in strikes per second and space in reflections off a fish scale. It shows us that knowledge does not always come from complexity. Sometimes it comes from clarity. So let us leave it there in its burrow beneath the coral ledge, its claws folded, its eyes scanning. It does not wait for applause. It does not seek discovery. It watches the world, layered and luminous, turning beneath waves that split the sunlight into unseen songs. And in that silent, vibrant place, the mantis shrimp lives a life of vision, complete, dazzling, and utterly its own. In the far northern forests, where the snow lies deep and the air grows so still it hums, there lives a creature that defies the cold not with warmth but with surrender. It is not large or fierce. It does not dig deep dens or migrate to sunnier skis. Instead, it lies beneath the fallen leaves, tucked into the soil's frozen edge, and allows itself to become still, so still in fact that its heart stops beating. This is the wood frog, and it survives winter by becoming, for a time, a quiet statue of ice. Most creatures avoid freezing with desperate urgency. Ice within the body is dangerous, even deadly. It pierces cell walls, disrupts function, spells the end of movement and thought. But the wood frog does not resist the cold, it meets it. It allows the frost to come and in doing so performs a biological miracle. Slowly its skin hardens, crystals form between its organs, its eyes go glassy, its breath halts, and still it does not die. To those who first discovered it, this seemed impossible. A frog frozen solid with no heartbeat, no circulation, no sign of life. And yet, as spring returns and the snow recedes, the frog thaws, its cells reawaken. The heart resumes its rhythm, muscles twitch, the eyes clear. Within hours, it hops once more across the damp, mossy ground, seeking water, seeking song, as if death had merely been a long dream. The secret lies in its blood, or more precisely, in what flows through it. As the first frost approaches, the wood frog begins a chemical transformation. Its liver floods its system with glucose, a type of sugar that acts like antifreeze. This glucose seeps into every cell, raising the concentration of solutes inside and preventing water from forming deadly internal crystals. It's not a complete freeze. Only the spaces between the cells solidify. The cells themselves are preserved in syrup. The process is gradual, measured, almost graceful. As the temperatures drop, the frog burrows shallowly into the forest floor, not too deep to avoid freezing, but deep enough to stay undisturbed. There, among the roots and rot, it waits. Ice begins to creep across its limbs, through its abdomen, up its spine. The frog becomes brittle to the touch. Lift it and it will not respond. It is not asleep. It is not unconscious. It is simply paused, a body in perfect stasis. For months it remains this way. Snow falls above, winds tear through branches, time passes, but the frog does not feel it. It is a kind of quiet that even silence cannot match. No hunger, no thirst, no movement, just stillness maintained by the balance of sugar and ice. By the end of winter, up to 70% of its body water may be frozen. And yet the tissues do not collapse. The membranes do not burst. The frog endures. Scientists have studied this feat with wonder. To freeze and live is to defy one of biology's oldest rules. And yet the wood frog does not break the rules. It rewrites them softly, through adaptation shaped by cold centuries. It has evolved not to fight its environment, but to flow with it. Its very survival is a kind of surrender, not passive, but purposeful. It gives itself to winter, trusting that spring will return. And return it does. As sunlight begins to warm the forest floor, the ice loosens. The glucose, no longer needed in such high concentration, is flushed back to the liver. The heart, still for weeks, gives a tentative beat. Then another. Blood begins to move. Cells stretch, wake, breathe. The frog does not leap instantly. It waits, warming inch by inch, letting the miracle unfold in its own time. And then, without drama, it moves. This emergence is often unnoticed. Few eyes are there to witness it, but for those who do, it is as if watching resurrection. A creature that by all signs should be dead, stepping gently back into life. It blinks, it stretches, it crawls toward a nearby puddle or meltwater stream. And soon it joins the chorus of others, males croaking into the thawing air, females drawn by the call. Life resumes. And no one sings louder than the ones who have frozen. The wood frog story is not just one of cold survival. It is a tale of patience, of transformation, of faith in the rhythm of seasons. It teaches that there is power in stillness and that some of the deepest forms of endurance are also the quietest. It does not rage against winter. It does not flee. It waits. It allows its body to mirror the stillness of the forest, to become part of the land itself, and in doing so preserves a flame of life beneath the frost. Other creatures enter torpor, hibernate, slow their systems. But the wood frog goes farther. It stops, truly stops. And this stopping is not an end. It is a bridge, a way to cross the void between the green of autumn and the bloom of spring. Its ability may one day help humans in medicine, in preservation, in understanding how life can be paused and restarted. But even without that future, it remains a wonder of now. Imagine lying beneath the soil, ice threading through your veins, heart unmoving, time suspended. And then warmth, breath return. The frog does not know it has done something extraordinary. It only knows the pull of spring, the urge to move, to mate, to live again. And that is its true genius, to live as if it had never stopped. To trust that life is not something lost in cold, but something waiting quietly beneath it. Now let us return to the forest floor where time slows and silence deepens. Long before the frost stiffens the leaves, the wood frog begins its quiet preparation. It does not build a shelter or flee south. Instead, it lets the cold arrive. Its liver floods the body with glucose, not for energy but protection. This sugar fills every cell like a shield, drawing water inward, keeping delicate structures safe when the ice comes. As temperatures drop, the frog's breath halts. Its blood stops. But its cells, cushioned in sweetness, endure. Outside, snow piles high. The earth grows silent. The frog remains locked in its frozen stillness. Yet inside that frozen frame, nothing breaks. There is no panic, no damage, just suspended life. Months pass. Then the sun returns. The snow begins to drip. The air softens. And deep beneath the melting leaves, the ice begins to loosen. Slowly the frog thaws. Its heart gives a soft beat. A second, then a third. Life returns in silence. It blinks, stirs, and crawls from its cold grave whole again. There is no drama, only instinct. It does not remember being frozen. It only feels the warmth, the pull of the pond, the call of another spring. It hops toward the water where others gather. Together they begin again as if winter never came. But it did, and they endured it not by resisting but by becoming part of it. Now the forest shifts again, the air full of water and birdsong, and the wood frog takes its place among the living. It sings from puddles left behind by melting snow, its voice part of the season's return. To those who listen, the sound is just another spring chorus. But hidden in that voice is the memory of silence, a stillness so complete, it held life in pause for months. Other animals wake from sleep, but the wood frog rises from cold death. It does not think of what it has survived. It does not marvel. It moves, it mates, it returns to rhythm. Its life is brief, a few years, a handful of springs, but each one is earned by surrendering to winter's grip and trusting in the thaw. Scientists now study its cells, hopping to learn how to preserve organs, how to hold life gently in place for healing or travel. But even without future uses, the frog's gift is already enough. It teaches us that survival isn't always struggle. Sometimes it's about stillness. Sometimes it's about becoming like the land, quiet, cold, and waiting. When summer ends again, the frog will return to the soil, not with fear but with readiness. It knows the cold will come. It knows the frost will take it. And still, it settles into the earth, trusting once more that life can wait beneath the ice.